The sharpest sting of seeing the person you love most marry someone else isn't when they exchange their vows. It's the gnawing emptiness of watching it play out on a dim, flickering screen at 2 in the morning, dressed in sweatpants, scooping ice cream, miles away from the man who once vowed to never let go. Here I sit, in my sleek Chicago apartment, staring at Marcus entwining his hands with a woman named Elena as they commit their lives to one another on a sun-drenched California coast. Tears pour down my cheeks, relentless, because I know I'm the one who set this heartbreak in motion. 5 years back, Marcus Rodriguez was my universe. My college sweetheart, my trusted confidant. The man who dropped to one knee beneath a canopy of stars on a Mexican beach during our final spring break, offering a ring he'd saved for months to afford. I didn't waver in saying yes, convinced no one could ever capture my heart as he had. I couldn't imagine a future without his contagious laughter echoing through our home, or his catastrophic cooking attempts setting off the fire alarm. But then Goldman Sachs offered me a position in their New York office, and suddenly Marcus's vision of a peaceful life in Bakersfield felt like a trap rather than a sanctuary. I convinced myself I was being practical when I proposed postponing our wedding for a year to launch my career. I told him long distance would be seamless, that our connection was unshakable. Marcus didn't protest, which should have been my first warning. He just gave me that gut-wrenching smile I'd grown to fear and promised he'd wait as long as it took for me to be ready to build our life together. When I moved to New York, he drove me to the airport, kissing me farewell as if I were leaving for a short trip, not unraveling the future we'd planned. That first year, I threw myself into work, enduring exhausting 16-hour days, flying to client meetings, and telling myself the ache in my chest when Marcus called was mere sentimentality, not remorse for choosing ambition over love. Marcus remained unwavering, calling every night despite the time difference, sending flowers to my office just because he missed me, and visiting whenever his teaching job and my demanding schedule permitted. But I felt him slipping away, his voice carrying a hint of disillusionment when I canceled another visit or ended our calls early for some critical work issue that could have waited. When the year ended, I panicked and requested another postponement, insisting I needed to land a senior analyst position before I could think about leaving New York. Marcus fell silent for what seemed like forever. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy, defeated in a way that twisted my gut. "How long, Rachel?" he asked. "How many promotions, how much money, how many achievements until you recall you wanted to marry me?" I shot back that he was being unreasonable, that I was building a future for both of us, that he'd understand if he truly loved me. My words were harsher than I intended, and I knew I'd crossed a line I couldn't undo. But Marcus didn't snap back or hang up as I expected. Instead, he said quietly, "I do love you, which is why I'll keep waiting, even though I'm starting to realize you might never return." That should have been my signal to book the next flight to California, to choose love over the shiny rewards I pursued. Instead, I doubled down on my career, convincing myself his patience proved his loyalty, that I could have everything if I just pushed a little further. I began casually seeing other people, calling it networking or harmless fun, nothing to challenge what Marcus and I had. The second year blurred into the third, and Marcus's calls became less frequent. His visits ceased completely, and I told myself it was natural for passion to fade with distance. When he mentioned seeing others during one of our awkward conversations, jealousy surged, but I suppressed it, reminding myself I was his fiancée, the one he'd promised to wait for. Elena entered his life in the 4th year of our unending long-distance stalemate. The way his voice softened when he mentioned her name told me she wasn't just a passing distraction to ease the loneliness I'd created. She was a kindergarten teacher at his school, someone who shared his passion for education, and his dream of a simple, family-centered life in his hometown. I should have been concerned when he stopped mentioning her. Should have realized his silence meant their connection was growing in ways that made discussing it with me feel inappropriate. Instead, I was relieved, as it let me pretend nothing had changed between us. The reality crashed over me like a tidal wave when I saw Marcus's engagement announcement on Facebook. Not to me, but to Elena Martinez, who'd been wearing his grandmother's ring for 3 months while I remained clueless. The photo showed them on the same beach where he'd first declared his love for me. Elena radiant in a flowing white dress, exuding a peace I hadn't known in years. I called him in a panic, demanding to know how he could betray me when I was his fiancée. His voice was calm but resolute. Rachel, we haven't spoken in 4 months. You left 5 years ago and keep finding reasons to stay away. I can't wait forever for someone who doesn't choose me. I insisted I'd always planned to return, that my success was for us, that he was giving up too soon. But he interrupted, his kindness more crushing than anger. You made a choice every day for 5 years. Now I'm making mine. Their wedding plans progressed swiftly, a simple ceremony before the school year started, and I became consumed, scouring mutual friends' posts and Elena's public Instagram for every detail. I told myself I was just curious about the woman who'd taken my place, but deep down, I couldn't accept that Marcus had found happiness without me while I was still chasing a life that felt complete. Elena was my opposite. Warm where I was ambitious, rooted where I was always moving, satisfied with simplicity where I craved constant advancement. Her posts showed Marcus laughing at their kitchen table, nurturing a garden they'd planted together, coaching Little League with kids who adored him, living the life he'd pleaded with me to share. I tried dating seriously for the first time since college, but every man felt hollow compared to Marcus's wit, his ability to make me feel like I was his entire universe. I achieved every career milestone: senior analyst, vice president, a corner office with a view of Central Park, but none of it filled the emptiness that grew when I realized I'd lost the one person who loved me unconditionally. The night before his wedding, I booked a flight to Los Angeles, convinced I could crash the ceremony, admit my mistakes, and reclaim him by finally choosing him. I imagined a dramatic scene, running down the beach, proclaiming that love outweighed ambition, money, or any excuse I'd used to stay away. But at LAX, I couldn't bring myself to rent a car. Instead, I sat in an airport bar, sipping wine, watching the live stream on Elena's sister's Instagram, seeing Marcus happier than I'd ever known him. Disrupting his joy would have been the cruelest thing I could do to someone I claimed to love. Now back in my luxurious apartment, surrounded by the trappings of success I thought I needed, I cry for the man I let slip away because I was too proud, too scared to admit that some things matter more than career victories. Marcus won't call anymore, won't send flowers or plan visits or wait for me to learn what truly matters. The hardest truth is that this isn't a film where a bold gesture wins him back. He's moved on, and Elena wakes up next to the man who once promised me forever. I believed he'd wait eternally because he said he would, never considering that promises fade when you choose everything else over the person who made them. At 32, I'm wildly accomplished, completely alone, and weeping because I finally understand that the life I built was just a polished escape from the only thing that ever truly mattered.